next to Jamarcus Russell, and you have a line. You have a run game. You've got weapons. So that's why I think with the conversation of Kyler Murray potentially being a fit in Minnesota, that's the stuff in which a lot of people are going to realize this is what Minnesota has to do in order to keep their competitive levels up. They cannot be far behind on this because a lot of teams, even with Green Bay's defense and with Jordan Love, even with Detroit and with the changes of coordinators and the Bears leading the division, Minnesota cannot afford to fall behind. All right, so joining us, listen, how about the Broncos? 9-2, they're first place in the AFC West. The defense has been playing red hot, but they're feeling themselves, and they're feeling themselves even more coming off the bye. I'm excited about what next week's going to bring us. Joining us, Super Bowl champion and who has played years in Denver, Sylvester Williams joins the show. It's been quite a while. I live here in Colorado, and every Bronco fan up from here is feeling themselves. They're feeling great. First place. And you know what? You had to take out the big giant. They're not out yet, but you had to kind of ruffle up some feathers with the big giant in KC. So I was previewing this before the season started. This is such a loaded defense that they've done a great job with. Talanoa Hufanga, they get Dre Greenlaw, and they get Jahdae Barron. And, you got a defensive player of the year in Patrick Surtain. So defensively, Sean Payton is all about we need takeaways, we need pressures, and we need sacks. They're doing all of this. And so when you think about that, and even from your playing career, you played with a lot of great guys on a defense and won a Super Bowl behind that. So when you think about that, is that really kind of the recipe of success when you're thinking about, like the offense, they'll figure it out. But the true recipe for success in winning a championship is just fundamentals and things like that.
Listen, 100%. And I tell people this all the time. Listen, when you got the ability to play defense at a high level, really you just need your offense to not lose the game. Manage the game, not turn the ball over, because defensively they giving up, the league's least amount of points per game. You got to think, but they can rush the passer. They can cover man-to-man. They got an amazing blitz package. They got second-level linebackers that can cover. They got the recipe to win a Super Bowl. And I think the biggest thing that will stop them is if the offense, hold them back. But I think defensively, they got it. They got everything they need on defense.
Yeah, and you know what? Speaking of the offense, because I know the biggest question mark that's been surrounding with this Broncos offense is obviously their captain up and into there is Bo Nix. And so I know for some people on the outside, it doesn't look sexy to them. But we do know this. If you have a competent quarterback who is willing to play a lot of the schemes on script, and even at times, and I've seen this, I think it's incredible Bo Nix has been able to throw that many pass attempts, but I think that tells you how much trust Sean Payton has in his quarterback. But we know that when it comes to the ad-lib stuff, stretching downfield, finding ways to get first downs, because you're going to be dealing with this without J.K. Dobbins for the rest of the year, so you're going to have to lean a lot on your rookie. But I think a lot of this, because this is the toughest stretch of the season before you go in and then potentially if you get the first round bye or if you're going to be up and into the middle of the pack, that's one of the challenges Bo Nix is going to have to end up coming across. Because me, respectfully, what I've said about this offense, it felt a lot like a diesel engine where you have to start it up, get it calibrated, and then eventually, like against the Giants, you're going to be putting up 30-plus points up from there. So that's kind of something because you want to get points up on the board early on, right?
Listen, 100%. You want to create that cushion. And the problem is they're starting games too slow. They're starting games, and they putting themselves behind the 8-ball. I was at the Giants game for the Super Bowl reunion. And, that's putting them in a bind. And they starting to come together at the end because they believe. And Bo Nix got a lot of swagger. And I think that's what's allowed him to overcome the adversity that he's faced. And like you said, we coming down the stretch right now where this team is going to have to build a lot of character, right? Because when you get to the playoffs, as you know, the mistakes got to become a minimum, right? You got to make the least amount of mistakes because the team that make the least amount of mistakes typically wins the Super Bowl. And so I'm happy that they got a lot of those mistakes out of the way early. I'm happy that they got those slow starts out the way early because now we know we got to fix. Go through the bye week. You get a strong win against Kansas City, which was a big win. Build momentum off of that. Because let me tell you this: when you beat a team like Kansas City, it not only builds confidence, but it also gives you the mindset that you can win a championship. Because you're talking about a team that won 3 championships, and you're talking about a team that has owned that division for the last decade. So to be able to come in and say, you know what, it's time for us to knock them off, and we could do it without planning necessarily our best on offense. Now you got that confidence. And see, when I look back to the team that we had in 2015, we won the Super Bowl. We had a historical defense that year.
Yeah.
And as great as he's been throughout his career, he was a shell of himself that year. He missed 5 games. Brock Osweiler came in. We didn't miss a beat because number one, we believed that we could win. We had a dominant defense, and we just had that swagger. So when Peyton Manning came back in the playoffs, he didn't have to come back and be 2014 Peyton Manning where he won the MVP. All he had to do was just come back. Hey, listen, just don't lose the game. Manage the game. We ran the ball effectively, manage the game. The defense take care of the rest. And we get to the Super Bowl, and as you can see, defense completely just took over. And so I think right now they got that recipe. I think Sean Payton is a great offensive mind. I think he will figure it out. And we still talking about a guy that's only in year 2 in Bo Nix.
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about a guy that got a ton of experience. Yeah, he got a ton of experience in college, and people lean on that, but the NFL is a different breed. You're talking about real animals out there. Like, you're not in college, you're gonna play against some guys that may not never play down in the NFL, but he got some time to grow. He got some room to grow. I think he will be a phenomenal quarterback. I think he will be a franchise quarterback. And I think Sean Payton and him will figure it out. And I think they got a great chance this year to go deep because they got the recipe. They got what it takes. You can stop people on defense. You can get turnovers. You can rush the passer. They on pace to break the record. They can cover. They got all the recipes.
I think it's funny too because he's a great kid. He says all the right things, leads a lot by example, and I think it's just for some people it's just harder for them to like really give him a chance. But even for me, it's like I watched him up in Auburn and Oregon, and I think give this puppy time. And honestly, he's in a better situation than most of these quarterbacks. I mean, you're seeing the debacle right now with JJ, and then you're seeing I like Michael Penix. But something has to change about the offensive scheme. And then obviously what's crazy is Jaden Daniels being where he's at, where he's now injury prone. Washington, they kind of hit a roadblock. And all you got now is Drake May and Caleb Williams. So it's like, but Bo Nix, you build a little bit of confidence up from there.
Yeah, shout out to Drake May, man, Tar Heel guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Tar Heel guy. So I got to shout my guy Drake May out having a phenomenal year. I mean, I think you're right. I think quarterback is obviously the toughest position to translate to the NFL, right? Because the reads are different. I think the benefit that Bo got is he does have a great defense, right? So his mistakes and the things that he's doing is not as public. It's not put on the big stage as much as JJ because they struggling as a team over there. So for him, if he go out there and throw 3 interceptions, well, he's still only down 1 touchdown because his defense has played phenomenal. Whereas in Minnesota, if he throw 3 interceptions, they down 21 points. And so you put him on a different team, you maybe see a different outcome. I just think, as a league in general, we got to do a better job at developing quarterbacks because I think that's kind of putting us behind the 8 ball a little bit. You look at the situation that's going on in Cleveland, it's a circus over there, But, I think that, I look at Bo Nix and I say, you know what, the plays are there for him to make. He's made some of them, and the best thing is he's made them at the right time, right? He's made them late in games when we need him to. Now, we get him to make some of those plays early in the game. Well, we talking about a different outcome, right? We talking about an offense that may be top 5 in the league, right? And what we do know about Sean Payton is he's creative. He's been that, throughout the course of his career, and he will figure it out, and I think they figure it out together. But what I like the most about them is they got the relationship. You can see it. They hold each other accountable, right? And if you see a lot of times, you see him getting at Sean Payton, you see Sean Payton getting at him. It's the accountability factor from both sides. And I think you need that in a quarterback coach, right? Because we got to see the same things. And Miami, you may see it from the sideline, but I'm seeing it live in action, right? So I'm telling you, this is what happened. I'm telling you, this is the read that I saw, why I made this play, and so on and so forth. And so being able to have that communication, I think is what's allowed Sean Payton to have that confidence in him. Because if I'm coming to you and I'm telling you, hey, you called the wrong play, or I'm telling you, hey, if I'm giving you about the play calls and you telling me hey, okay, I understand. Now I can make the adjustment because I understand that you understand what I'm trying to tell you, right? So now I'm letting that rope go a little bit, and then guess what? As a play caller, I'm a lot more open to call certain plays because I know, okay, I could be a little bit aggressive here because if I get a ball up, my defense gonna hold it down, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the benefit that the Broncos got, and I think that, like I said, I see a lot of similarities to the 2015 team that we had, especially on defense. And the way they're playing, like you said, the defensive player of the year and pass return, we had Chris Harris and Akeem Talib. You know, the way they rushed in the passer, we had some dogs up front, as you know, and they got the recipe, right? And as you know, this time of the year, it's going to come down to who can run the ball
Yep.
and stop the run.
And coaching is crucial this
Yes.
time around. And you know what's crazy? It's funny. Even when I looked at that last year when there was that Ferris Bueller comment that Sean Payton made on Bo Nix, and they laughed it off. It was just like, yeah, it's intense, but we all are fighting for the same thing. So it's like, yeah, I knew this relationship was going to be as strong and as definitely as fruitful as it could be. Like, yeah.
But Peyton Manning and Gary Kubiak had that same relationship.
Yeah.
You have to put the trust in your quarterback because this quarterback is going to be the reason why this team succeeds or if it fails, right? And so being able to have that strong relationship where we can hold each other accountable is important. And you look at it like this, man. Sean Payton, he pushed all the chips on the table. He said, I want Bo Nix, and I'm willing to put my job on the line and this franchise on the line, right? So when you put that much trust into a guy, right, because he came out public and said, this is my guy. When you put that much trust into a guy, we got to make it work. And in order for us to make it work, we have to be in a relationship where it's beneficial for both of us. We can both hold each other accountable. And I think that that's what they're building over there. And again, we got to keep in mind that the guy is only in year 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the best thing. Like, it's the biggest thing we also have to remind ourselves. Like, it's only going to grow and prosper, and it's going to get better from here. It's interesting because a lot of people that are football fans, you'll love watching what this season has looked like. But if you're a fan of a team, it kind of is hard because there are some teams you see the expectation before you and it's coming to fruition. And for some, the expectations haven't hit. Like, it's a physical sport. Injuries are bound to happen. But when you look at inconsistencies and you look at some stuff, there are some of those things that eventually come to light. So I look at this and I think with Detroit is Dan Campbell is just who he is. He's unapologetically him. He's going to end up, taking some risky shots, but it's the culture in which it's a love-hate relationship because you love that he's getting aggressive, but you hate the fact that there are times he gets overly aggressive. But sometimes if it works, it works. I mean, nobody can figure out Philly. I mean, with Nick Sirianni, because sometimes it's emotionally up and down, but yet it works for Philly. So when you think about Detroit, because we know the Bears being up and in first, that's a first for everybody. You got Green Bay with their defense. And so I think with Detroit, they have an opportunity. But the NFC, though, Sylvester, is there are about 6 to 7 teams right now fighting for that last wild card spot potentially. And it's going to be an uphill battle from here on in. But it's like Detroit, they got dudes. So it's like, what do they got to do to keep the momentum and play, especially when you're dealing with a tougher division like their own?
Listen, that division is going to come down to week 17.
Yeah.
Those last 3 weeks of the season is going to determine the NFC. Now, when you look at Detroit and you look at a team that's been there the last couple of years, right? They fell short as to what we all thought their potential was in making it to the Super Bowl. But a team that has an identity, right? We're going to run the ball. We're going to be physical up front. Now, they've had some struggles on offense. Dan Campbell's now calling plays, right? So now you got a different voice in the quarterback's ear. You got a different scheme, whatever it may be. And, you lose an offensive coordinator to the Bears, which was an amazing coach, very creative. And, it's going to be some adjustments there. Dan Campbell is an aggressive coach. But if you think about it, he was an aggressive player. He was a balls to the wall kind of player. I think Detroit was the perfect fit for him because he's that kind of guy, right? I was around him a little bit in New Orleans when I was there for a short time, and he's that kind of guy. He's a gritty kind of guy. And listen, we going to go for it. I mean, the guy got some balls. You got to give him that. Yeah. He had a couple of times where he went for it, and I'm like, and didn't get it and got to turn around and play defense. But I'm gonna tell you what that does to a team, right? When I know my coach believe in me, and when I know he's putting it on the line for it does make you play harder, right? And if you look at Detroit, they play hard. Now, the ball hadn't fallen their way this year, right? Whatever that may be, but they're going to be a dangerous team come playoff time. Down the stretch, if they could figure it out again on offense, they got a great running game. They just get behind the sticks a couple times. You know what I'm saying? And if they could figure it out, they're gonna be a dangerous team because you know why? He's gonna be aggressive. They gonna run the ball. They can stop the run. They can play defense as well. They got an amazing pass rush, and so they're gonna be a team that's gonna be dangerous. The Bears, man, I tell you what, Caleb Williams, man, he shocked me. I will give him that. He shocked me. I was a non-believer, and again, when you got a great play caller, when you got a coach that believes in you, it kind of brings some different juices out of you. And I think you see the quarterback that's struggling. Again, quarterbacks it's gonna be up and down. Peyton Manning had, right? Peyton Manning didn't come out as the greatest of all time. He came out, he had his ups and downs. And the thing about Detroit is they got all the pieces in place. Now they got the Birds, they got Green Bay. Because guess what? When they get cold, Green Bay, they don't play indoor. They play outside. So they're gonna be ready for that cold. Detroit got to figure it out because they need to play at home that first game.
Yep.
They don't want to have to go to Green Bay or go to Chicago, right? Because we all know Detroit play in the Dome. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to have to go down there, man, because it's going to be a lot tougher out there. But, man, that's a tough division right there. Minnesota is really holding them back, But them other three teams, man, it's going to come down. You looking at, somebody ain't going to make the playoffs that deserve to make it.
Yeah, and what's crazy about it is, it was not a beautiful win. It was okay, but San Francisco last night, you had Purdy throwing 3 picks, and if it won, and listen, Robert Saleh said this on the program, he deserves a second shot at head coach. I think the Jets completely fumbled him on the job, and I'm watching what he's doing in defense. Even with Purdy throwing 3 picks in the first half, that defense shut down Bryce Young, and they only kept Carolina to 9 points. But even San Francisco, that quote-unquote easy schedule people keep saying, ain't looking as easy because injuries ended up riddling up. The bag got too big, and so there's a lot of expectations up from there. So teams like that are even going through that. So I definitely want to ask this because you've played in this very organization, and you've seen this beforehand where you had a head coach that you knew was top tier, and he was a player's guy. Guys loved him. Well, now, you know where I'm going with this. Mike Vrabel doing what he's doing in New England tells you a lot of what Tennessee, just the mistakes they ended up making up from there. And Tennessee, we know, they're looking for a new stadium. They're trying to get something going. So now there's a job opening. And I would say compared to the Giants job, because New York media is just it's brash. But I know Tennessee. You got great music, you got barbecuing. My big thing with the Titans, they need a culture guy. And there's a couple options that's up from out there. Who do you kind of presume would be fitting for an organization like Tennessee? Because you got to get these players right. You got to, coach a lot and structurize around Cam Ward because he's going to need that. And then figuring out where do we build the consistency from top to bottom on offense and defense.
I'm going to tell you this right now, who should be at the top of everybody's list, Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph is a guy, again, Robert deserves a second chance. Don't get me wrong. And he will get that second chance.
Yeah.
Vance Joseph, he deserved that second chance, and he deserves it right now. See, Tennessee, again, when you look at cultures, right, and you look at Tennessee, they should never let go of Vrabel. And that's just my opinion. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a player, right? And you need a player's coach. You need a guy that's going to come in and say, listen, I believe in you. You got to ride with me through my ups and downs, right? Because as any organization, right, unless you're the Patriots, they had a bunch of ups, right? They mostly was up, other than when Tom Brady got hurt, but they built a culture that lasted them for a long time. And when you let go of a coach that has had success, that has proven that he can build quarterbacks up, even though he's a defensive guy, and you let him go, and now you just throwing stuff at the wall trying to see what stick. Then you could draft the quarterback number 1 overall, and you bring him into a chaotic situation and expect for him to have success. It's just not going to happen. So you need a guy, to me, that's going to come in. Again, you got a quarterback that we believe can play, right? So you go get a defensive guy in Vance Joseph. You bring him in, stabilize the defense, get you some offensive linemen, run the ball. Guess what New England did this year? They went and got offensive line. They went paid their defensive lineman. They said, we're going to run the ball. We're going to stop the run. They got a quarterback. I'm going to make it easy for you. I can't even think of the guy's name that's up in New England, the running back that's a rookie.
Yeah, Travion Henderson. Yep.
Run the ball, become unpredictable. We win games. But you let a guy like that go, and then you go with inexperience. You go with guys that I love coaches that play in the locker room, that was inside of a locker room, play in recent years. I don't want a guy that played in the 80s, the 90s. Give me a guy that played in the 2000s. Bring him in because he understands the landscape and he can relate to the players. That's why Mike Ray was able to have success. You see the players where he's out there freaking running around doing drills with the defensive lineman pregame. Like, man, that type of stuff bring energy. And so, to me, if I'm Tennessee, I'm going to go get a guy like that. That's just me personally. I'm going to go get Vance Joseph out of Denver, and bring him in and have him run the show.
I like it. It's interesting. And I thought about this because, like, even Vance Joseph, he has the experience up from there, being both a coach and a coordinator. So why not give it another chance and at least rebuild a culture that was once lost and maybe can be found again? And that'll be even better with a future star quarterback. Speaking of cultures, a final question here for you. Now, of course, we know with Denver being up and in first place, but the second place team, you actually had the opportunity to witness him yourself. But Justin Herbert in the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, and the stuff that he's doing right now. Like, I had Quinn Jammer on here about a couple days ago and was talking a lot about this culture with the Chargers. And even he admits this team's just cursed. What do they got to do to get better? You got key guys that are getting hurt, and then you face up against teams that you should beat, but then came up short. And they've got fire in their bellies for Raider week this week. So we know this has been a great competition thus far in the AFC West. I love every bit of it. But for Herbert, he's having to overcome a lot of adversities in his way. The O-line's banged up. There's not a whole lot of blocking in order for him to be able to distribute the ball to his weapons. But we know Jim Harbaugh is just that kind of guy that can be quirky, but even tough in the trenches. He's just going to basically tell you, look, I've seen this before, and I played through this. We're going to show you how, and this is also where it's going to be an important 5-game stretch for them, because that one big thing, not just getting the playoffs, but winning the playoff game is the big hump that's up and on his back that he's trying to get rid of.
Listen, I expect the big things from them this year, to be honest with you. I expect for them and the Broncos and the Chiefs to compete heavily for the division. Losing both tackles, one that you just made the highest paid tackle, I mean, that's tough right there, especially for a quarterback. I'd be scared if I was back there. You know what I'm saying? And but I think the biggest thing is, like, I don't want to use the word curse because I feel like, well, we could say they curse, but I just think it's when you bad for so long and you get into those situations, it's like, well, here we go again. It's like, oh man, here we go again. Went through this last year. So that's why I do believe in, changing the whole culture, bringing in a guy like Harbaugh, and who has turned it around. Now they hadn't had the success that we believe that they could or should have. But I think that, again, they're a team that could cause some issues. Here come playoff run. I think that, they gonna have to pack it up and get ready for next year. Just because I think that, they still got some pieces to fill. They've been shaky at receiver, right? They did bring Keenan Allen back, who has been an amazing boost for them. But again, they still missing the number one receiver that can take over the game, right? They brought in the running back from my school, North Carolina. He had a success, right? And I think they brought another running back in. Who was it?
Yeah, they brought in Najee Harris, and now he's out for the season.
There you go. So it's like you said, injuries. I don't want to call it curse. They just having bad luck right now. But, again, losing tackles, not having the run game. The run game helps everything out, right? And you've been a fan of the game and understand the game and watching it. Teams that can run the ball, that's why Philly's so good, because they can run the ball at a high level. They can quarterback run. They can run with Saquon. When you can run the ball at a high level, it makes everything else easy. I got to load the box up, right? Now my receivers, easier for them to get open, right? And, but you look at a team like the Chargers and you say, okay, how do we get better? How do we overcome the hump? The number one issue is run the ball. You got to be able to run the ball. If you can run the ball, it's gonna solve a lot of your problems. And they hadn't been able to do that. They put a lot on Justin Herbert. He without both tackles, and that's just something they got to fix, right? They got some bad luck this year because the injuries, man, has tore them apart. And I don't necessarily see them. I do think they can cause some problems, but I don't see them having the success that they thought they was gonna have this year at all.
Yeah, it's hard, and of course too, and I think it's also the crazy thing is we live in a caffeinated society and we expect a ton of results, right? And of course, like they always say, more money, more problems. There's going to be different kinds of problems. But a lot of times, fan bases, they harp about this. I mean, we've seen this with Denver where it took a long time until in comes Sean Payton. And he's been through this before, even more than I think that what he's had to deal with in New Orleans. But it's so impressive how he's been able to make a complete 360 turnaround. So to have that and eventually get just the one, maybe two pieces, depending on it for the key pieces in the positions, that's what's going to make it even bigger and better. But it's funny. I think about this. I love the fact that as a historian, you got to love this kind of stuff. History finds a way to repeat itself. And to me,
absolutely,
the game has gotten defensive. The game's gotten more gritty and in the trenches with running the football. That's the kind of style you love to see and watch as a diehard football fan when you've grown up watching this. It's like there ain't not a ton of teams that I can trust outside the Rams and Seahawks, and for some, but it's like this is more wide open than I've ever seen it.
Hey, I tell you this, and I'm gonna get when I turn on the game, you know what I do? I watch those guys up front. I don't watch the quarterback. I watch those two offensive and defensive line. You look at the Seahawks defensive line. You look at the Seahawks offensive line. You look at the Rams O&D line, and they get movement and they stop the run at a high level, and that's why it's easy for their quarterback to have success, right? When you look at a team like Washington Commanders, they struggling to run the ball. They getting their quarterback hurt. They having a down year. And it's like when you go build up front and you put those guys where they can move the line of scrimmage and they can stop the run and they got that mindset to dominate, you have success. And you look at the Broncos. The Broncos, when Sean Payton first got there, they was still trending in the same direction they was. We had been since 2015. Yep. In come a new quarterback. He's finally starting to get his guys now. He finally starting to get his culture there. Now you see the results because I seen somebody say this earlier. They said, we 9-2, but it feel like we 2-9, right? And no, what you're seeing is guys that believe, right? You're seeing the guys that's playing all four quarters. You're seeing the defense that's taking over games. Whereas you go to another team like the Cowboys or even Green Bay has had some losses they shouldn't have. And it's just because when you get to those crunch times, you got to have those guys in your locker room that believe in what the coach is telling them, that believe in the plan. The ultimate goal is to get to a championship. So when they get hard, I don't care if we down 21 points or we down 7 points. We play the same. Man. We play to the last whistle. And that's a culture change. That's organizations that got that. You look at Mike Tomlin, and they not having the year that we thought they would have, but year after year after year, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter who get hurt, they end up at the end of the year, they end up in the playoffs. Now, they hadn't won in the playoffs, but he is a coach that can get the best out of his players and make them believe they can win. Of course, you're not going to have the success because in order to have the success, you got to lose, go get a top 10 quarterback, and then rebuild yourself. He hadn't had that luxury because every time he picking in 17, 18, 19, and in the 20s. So you ain't going to get necessarily a franchise quarterback at that point unless you give everything up and trade down. But, again, when you build a culture that players that believe, when you got that veteran leadership in the locker room, when you got those guys that been in these situations before, that's why teams love overpaying former Super Bowl champions. If you win a Super Bowl with one team, you get overpaid to go to the next team because teams want that winning culture in the locker room. They're trying to create a culture of winning. And I think that's what a lot of teams struggle with.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I'm just like, can the playoffs start already? I love it, just the atmosphere and just, the gritty and intensity that we always see, especially with these last 5 games coming up around the corner. It's going to be a lot of fun, action-packed, and at the same time, it's best man wins at this point up and into the stretch. Well, very thankful to having you up and onto the show, Sylvester. Enjoy the Thanksgiving with you and your family, man. It's been a great Thanksgiving week, man. We've had such great lineup of interviews, man. I continue to hope that we have more of it up and along the way, especially with the holiday season up and around the corner. So Appreciate you. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend, and we'll see you soon, and we'll see what them Denver Broncos got up in store the next 5 weeks.
Hey, listen, man, go Broncos. I appreciate you having me. You got a great thing going and a lot of fun. And I will say this. This is the first year in a long time that usually when the season starts, I'm usually like, well, this team got a good chance to win the Super Bowl this year. But the team that has been there over the last couple of years, they all struggling this year. So we may be crowning a new champion this year. And I think right now, I think a lot of teams got a lot of chance. So we may have a dark horse to win a Super Bowl this year, at least be there. And I'm excited about that because I feel like it's time for some of these underdogs to win. Hopefully,
I agree.
But who knows?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be anybody's game up from here, man. But yeah, I would love to see that happen, honestly, because then it just shocks everybody. Like the one bomb drop that happens up in the league, shocking everybody, and then it's like, what do we got to do now for the draft in the off season in the end? All righty, man. Take care of yourself. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. Yeah,